DJ Lagway is the most important player for the Florida Gators' success in 2025.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. And today we're straying from basketball a little bit just to talk football because I know that there's been people wanting that. And we're talking about the most important players as we're about a week and a half away from the spring game, which, by the way, after the spring game on April 12th, we will be going live as if it were a normal game. After the spring game, we will be having multiple days where you are getting scouting reports based off of those spring games if you are part of the Insider program. And if you want to join that, the link is in the description below, or you can go to joinsubtext.com/lockedongators. And when we talk about the success of this Florida Gators team, you have to talk about DJ Lagway first, right? Assuming that we're talking about a player, which today we are only talking about players. Because, yeah, you could say, Billy Napier, Russ Callaway, Ron Roberts, any of the callers or coordinators. But when we're talking about individual players, DJ Lagway is the first guy, right? I mean, first off, don't know if you know this, quarterback's the most important position in football. Duh. Not debatable, not disputable. Look at who gets drafted highest, look at who gets paid most. There's a reason for that. And quarterback's the most important position in football. DJ Lagway plays that position. And he did his job last year, right? I think that there's a tough I think it's hard for people to have a genuine opinion of DJ Lagway because I do think that a lot of Florida Gators fans watched him and went, oh, he's doing this as a true freshman. That's incredible. He's incredible. And I think that rival fans, because if you guys don't know, like I sit in Twitter spaces during the day, like I listen to him, I'll communicate. And I know rival fans talk about, well, one, he can't stay healthy, which we'll talk about in a second. And two, that, well, he wasn't actually that good. My opinion has been that I do think that for a true freshman, he was really good, right? One of the best deep passers in the country. Can't dispute it. And I'm not even saying look at the PFF grade. I'm saying look at the stats on the deep passes. Look at the film on the deep passes. And you're going to see a really efficient and really effective deep passer. Okay? I think that he was fantastic for a true freshman. But as far as just a quarterback, like if DJ Lagway was a junior last year, we would not be talking about how incredible it was. We'd be saying, hey, yeah, he's pretty good, but he's got some areas of improvement. That's how I'm going to look at him. Because I understand saying, oh, as a true freshman, that's incredible. But now when we're talking about you being QB1 the entire time, we're not talking about if you're a true freshman, true sophomore. That doesn't matter anymore. When we're talking about lining up against players of any grade, any age, anything like that, we're talking about who's the best. It doesn't matter what your grade is. You get leeway on things depending on that, sure. Like if he improves, but he still has some struggles in some areas, we'll go, well, he's a sophomore now. Like he's young. It makes sense. But as far as does that make you an all-American caliber player? No, it doesn't. That's not how it works. So for me, I've been very open about it. DJ Lagway, like last year, DJ Lagway and the Florida Gators were not playing sustainable football. That's what I've been saying. They were overly reliant on we need the run game to be working and we need the deep shot to be working. If both of those aren't working, offense probably isn't doing well, right? I said that much of the year, even games they won and lost. I was saying that same thing. And that's what happened, right? When teams were able to shut down either the run game or the deep passing attack, Florida's offense was relatively non-existent because one of DJ Lagway's areas, which again he was banged up, he had the hamstring injury, but or we'll say thigh because they reported it as 6 different things. Um, but he had the thigh injury that limited his mobility, and so took him out of the running game, took his scramble ability away, and forced him to throw underneath more. And he just wasn't great at it, right? I do think he'll be better there because I think a lot of that was a mental part, not a glaring red flag mental part. Just hey, he's a young football player that's one of the things he needs to learn to do, right? You look at Willis and a lot of what he did. He had to run around a lot. He had these broken plays. He was taking deep shots. All those things that we saw when he was healthy last year for the University of Florida, but obviously we need to now see that development to becoming a true high level starting quarterback at the SEC level. And I do think that we'll see at least a decent step toward that because we'll talk about the shoulder in a second. Because that is something that you can work on regardless of what's going on physically. You can work on that mental part. And I do think that a lot of what DJ Lagway struggled with last year was due to being a freshman, right? Due to being an inexperienced player at the SEC level. Not a knock, just is what it is. For his shoulder injury, we were told the day that spring ball started, if I'm not mistaken, by Billy Napier that, hey, DJ Lagway is, dealing with a shoulder thing. They're going to be limited right now. And it's interesting because I've been told and other media members have been told that, hey, if there were a game today, like if there was an actual regular season game today, if this was week 1, even against Long Island, which you could argue, I think a lot of people would argue, is less important for determining the success of the team than the spring game. I'm not saying that I feel that way. I've heard people say that. There have been people that said, hey, if they were playing against Long Island today, he would be playing. Cool. I hate personally just that he hasn't been throwing every day in spring. That's what I hate, just because I think that he needs that development, and I think more reps are better for him. But the ideal situation is that we get through whatever you're getting through, and then we call it a day at 100%, and we just move on and work on development there. And again, nobody on the planet should be questioning if DJ Lagway has been working or not this whole time, whether or not he's been working out or not this whole time, whether or not he's been training this whole time. The answer is yes. He's been doing all of that, right? He's been developing. It's just the thing that I need to see him develop with is the on-field stuff. Like, I know he could throw a ball better than basically anybody in the country. I know that. I know he's a tank through contact. I know what he can do on the field. I need him to take that next step mentally. I think the best way to do that is by actually going out there and getting the full reps 100% of the time. And so that's what I would like to see when DJ Lagway is healthy. We are going to talk about, I guess, not so much an individual player, but a unit for the Florida Gators' success when we get back with Locked On Gators. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 plus top brands. You'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And the next most important players, I guess we'll say, for the Florida Gators' success in 2025, it's your big three on defense, right? Your big three on the defensive line, more specifically. It's Caleb Banks, it's Tyreak Sapp, it's George Gumbs. Like I think that you can look at last year, and we could talk about a million things with the turnaround, right? We can talk about what contributed to turning this team around in 2024. We could talk about who contributed to turning this team around in 2024. But when it comes down to it, a lot of it comes down to Caleb Banks, Tyreak Sapp, and George Gumbs. And we spoke about this, I want to say a week or two ago. We spoke about these guys returning and what that means for this team, because it does mean a lot to have that coming back. Caleb Banks is probably the best pass rusher in the group overall. He had the most pressures last year, not the most sacks. But I don't think he's the best player overall. I'll say that. I think that's Tyreak Sapp. I think Tyreak Sapp, after having a relatively lackluster first few years of his career, last year just really turned it on, really took a next step developmentally. And I don't think that there's a coincidence between what happened with the coaching staff last year and Tyreak Sapp and Caleb Banks both taking significant steps in their development. I'll say that. But I think that you look at that big three, Caleb Banks is the best pass rusher overall. Tyreak Sapp is the best player overall. And George Gumbs, great athlete, needs some technical refinement, but still he's talented enough to get the job done consistently, I think at least. And I think that his motor running hot, should see a lot of one-on-ones. Probably going to have a productive year, I'd say. But I mentioned Caleb Banks as the best pass rusher because not just because he had the most pressures, right? But because he is the guy that when he turned it on, the rest of the defensive line got better, right? It wasn't, oh yeah, Caleb Banks is holding everybody back. Tyreak Sapp's been going off this whole time. George Gumbs been going off this whole time. No, it's that this whole defensive line seemed relatively inconsistent. Then Caleb Banks turned it on for those last 4 or 5 games of the season. And once Caleb Banks turned it on, the rest of the defensive line got significantly better. The rest of the defensive line started performing way more. It is not that, oh, once Caleb Banks turned it on, so did Tyreak Sapp and so did George Gumbs. George Gumbs, first year, at the start of the year, wasn't playing as many snaps as he was toward the end of the year. Tyreak Sapp was playing fantastic football for a lot of the year, but wasn't finding as much success as a pass rusher. Then Caleb Banks starts going off. Caleb Banks starts eating, and the entire offense or the entire opposing offenses against Florida start game planning around slowing down Caleb Banks because he proved that he has game wrecker potential, right? Like you look at that LSU game, he had 9 pressures. 9. Florida had 7 sacks. And for those of you who don't remember, this LSU line last year allowed 6 sacks going into that game. It was week 12. And LSU had allowed 6 sacks, and Florida got 7 of them. That's what we're talking about. That's the kind of production that we're talking about. Is that Caleb Banks turned it on and they started wrecking everybody, and Caleb Banks turned it on and everybody else started stepping up. And it's not a coincidence. It's not that everybody started going off at one time. It's that Caleb Banks started going off and then everybody else followed. Tyreak Sapp, again, like I said, I think he's the best overall lineman. When we talk run defense, I don't think that there's a better single defensive lineman on the team than Tyreak Sapp. I think that maybe Cam Jackson was last year, but even then, that's a maybe. I'm not fully sold on it. I would still personally give the nod to Tyreak Sapp, but I think that overall it's Tyreak Sapp's the guy, and I think that now this year again, hopefully we'll see. I don't think you'll see another developmental step to the rate that Tyreak Sapp saw prior to the 2024 year, because I don't think that that's something that he's capable of doing, not in a negative way. It's just he took a huge step from 2023 to 2024. I wouldn't expect a huge step again. I would expect a more gradual development there. But I do think that when you look at Caleb Banks coming back, and if he can play at, we'll say, 80% the level of dominance that he finished the year with for the entire year. So those last 4 games he played, if he can play the entire 2025 season with 80% of that dominance, he's going to be an All-American. Okay? I think that Tyreak Sapp being the best overall defensive lineman there. I'm not saying All-American because I don't know about the production. But having those two, you're going to get George Gumbs with a lot of one-on-ones. And that should create some production. There are question marks with the secondary. At safety, I don't think there's many question marks. I think that it's, hey, we've got our 2 starters. We've got, just a ton of talent behind them. Absolutely. Corner, it's, hey, we've got a lot of youth, a lot of unproven talent, but we've got guys like Devin Moore, who when he's healthy, he's very talented. You got guys like Cormani McLean, who showed flashes last year, could take a big step in 2025, should take a big step in 2025. Like, he's someone where I say, hey, that should not be a gradual step. That should be a big step in 2025. Deshaun Johnson, great year last year for the most part, had a couple negative plays, but that's it. This is a secondary, though, that outside of those 3, or even including those 3, there's big questions. Can Dijon get it done against wide receiver ones consistently? Because he got burned a bit last year. Can DJ Moore stay healthy? Can Cormani McLean put things together consistently? There are question marks in the secondary. A lot of it revolving around youth or unproven ability. That can all be masked and helped by a strong pass rush, which the Florida Gators should have by Caleb Banks, Tyreak Sapp, and George Gumbs. We are going to flip to the offensive side of the ball to wrap up today's show when we get back with Locked On Gators. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at LockedOnCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch Money, MONARCH money.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege with no spaces for half off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. And the last part that we're talking about here is the offensive line, which now that you know that, makes a lot of sense, right? We're talking about what are some of the most important factors, I guess we'll say, for the Florida Gators' success in 2025. And we talked about the quarterback, which is the most important position in, I've said it before, all of sports, right? I don't think there's a single position as valued or as impactful as quarterback, as starting quarterback. The one quarterback is, I guess, baseball. People will say starting pitchers, but you pitch one every 5 games. You can't be more valuable than someone that touches the ball every snap. So we'll say we talked about quarterback, the most important position in sports. We talked about defensive line. And we talked about the offensive line. Who'd have thought that football, you're talking about the quarterback and the trenches? Crazy theory. But the Florida Gators offensive line in 2025, the expectations should be high, right? They should be. It's year 4 for Rob Sale. He is one of, 2 assistant coaches that have been here since the beginning? Rob Sale, Jabbar Jalouk. That's it. He's one of 2 assistant coaches that have been here as position coaches from the very beginning. We know that Ryan O'Hara has been talked about as, even when analysts weren't allowed to be as involved, Ryan O'Hara was talked about, and Billy was saying, yeah, he's a quarterbacks coach. But as far as legit, official, on-field position coaches, it's Rob Sale in year 4 and Jabbar Jalouk in year 4, and that's it. As guys that have been here since the beginning, with Billy Napier in year 4. And I think that on the offensive line, Jonathan DeCoster has been an absolute, I'm just going to call him a godsend on the offensive line. I love what he's doing. Loved his background. We spoke about him when he got hired by Florida, that I spoke with Jedrick Wills from the Cleveland Browns. And he was like, hey, yeah, he's awesome. Love him. Glad he's getting the opportunity to be more active there. And for Florida, you're returning 4 of your 5 offensive linemen, right? The only offensive lineman that's not back is Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. Left tackle, Austin Barber. Left guard, Najee Harris. Center, Jake Slaughter. Right guard, Damian George are all back. I do believe, and I've said this before, I do believe that we will see a competition on the at the guard spots, and I do say plural, with Najee Harris, Damian George, and Rod Kearney, who's entering year 3, who, I think a lot of us, myself included, loved Rod Kearney coming out of high school. Thought he'd be fantastic. I still think he'll be fantastic. Like I still, when I think of Rod Kearney, I go, yeah, I haven't seen him play much at the college level yet. I can't get his high school film out of my head though. When I think of him, I just look at him and I think that, like, I stand by the evaluation that he's a tremendously talented interior offensive lineman. I do. And so I think that you'll see a competition there at guard, which good. I will say I don't think that, and this is just me saying that I don't think Florida has a tendency to do this at this point with Billy Napier and this coaching staff. I'm not sold on if they would bench Damian George at all. Like let's say they have a competition and he's losing the competition, and he is the inferior player of the competition there. I'm not sold that even then the coaching staff would replace him, that they would then just go, okay, look, we're just going to rotate a lot then on the line, and Damian George will be the one that we rotate out. So I'm not sold there, but either way, at right tackle, I'm not too concerned with it. If it's Bryce Lovett or Caden Jones, I'm fine with it. I don't mind it. I think that Caden Jones has a higher ceiling. I think that Bryce Lovett has a higher floor. I think that Bryce Lovett could be considered a more valuable player overall, but I think that part of that is because of his versatility. Like, he can genuinely play all 5 spots on the offensive line. I think that when we start talking about Bryce Lovett and the NFL, we'll talk about him almost exclusively as a guard. That does not mean that he can't be a good right tackle or a great starting right tackle. We see fantastic all-American caliber offensive tackles move to guard at the next level. So just because people think, myself included, that, hey, long-term he's best suited to guard, does not mean that short-term he's not best suited to tackle. Okay? So that's not a concern for me. And Caden Jones, like I've said, like I think that he's just got insane size and the elite athletic traits that you watch him and you go, all right, well, he could play anything you need him to play there out there or either tackle side. He can do whatever you ask of him at either tackle side. I think he's best suited to right tackle. I think that he will be a right tackle long term. And honestly, no matter who it is, I'll be happy with it. I think Bryce Lovett, probably a better run defender or probably a better run blocker than pass blocker. Caden Jones, the opposite. Caden Jones, also, I forgot which game it was. Might have been Ole Miss, but worked out in space on a swing screen, was just mowing people down on it. And stuff like that is exciting, right? To see an offensive tackle that can get out in space, get smaller defenders, get their hands on them, and make plays. You love seeing stuff like that. This offensive line should take a next step, right? Physically, they have the athletic traits to get things done. They've got another year of coaching under both Rob Sale and Jonathan DeCoster now. Also important to remember that Jonathan DeCoster last year came in mid-year, like not mid of the season, but middle of the year, because Darnell Stapleton went to the Washington Commanders when Dan Quinn got hired there. And then Jonathan DeCoster came in. So it's not even like this was end of 2023 season we hired him and now we're working through. Nope. This was a late hire that the Florida Gators will now have the full offseason with. And you could see the clips that Jonathan DeCoster posts online. You can, if you ever heard him speak, if you ever seen him speak, you can look at him and just say, like he's a great offensive line developer. He's teaching the technique, which love to see. I feel like this offensive line, they went out there and they recruited elite athletes on the offensive line, multi-sport athletes on the offensive line that have the traits to be great. And they basically bank on their development. And then we're talking about a guy like Jonathan DeCoster who is focusing on the technique. Rob Sale has always been, hey, we're going to get guys to play like a unit. And on paper, this team should work out. I will also mention Austin Barber at left tackle. Nate Tice, who if you don't follow Nate Tice on social media, you should. It's Nate Tice. You should follow him. He posted on Monday or Tuesday, I forgot which day. But he was posting about Austin Barber saying like, hey, prior to the year, I had him as a top 50 player in the draft. He's back though, which promising, right? But he loves Austin Barber. Austin Barber is someone that I know that there are many Florida Gators fans, myself included, that say, hey, I think that long-term he might be better at right tackle. Again, just because long-term they might be better at something doesn't mean that they're not going to play something else, right? Like Bryce Lovett. Long-term, better at guard, but he's going to play right tackle here. Austin Barber. Long-term, better right tackle, he's going to play left tackle here. Stuff like that, you're just going to see, right? It's college. That's a common thing. I mean, hell, we see quarterbacks change position at the next level, right? So, I look at the offensive line and I say everything on paper says this offensive line should come back and be successful, and that should open up everything for this Florida Gators offense. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free every single podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators basketball, football. We'll see. For Locked On Gators and Brandon Olsen, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.